Okay, I think we are ready. So a very warm welcome and good afternoon to this session on securing energy in a shifting world. My name is 𝗕𝗿𝗶𝗀𝗀. I'm the CEO of Nordic Energy Research, which is an institution under the Nordic Council of Ministers. And as you know, the Nordic Council of Ministers is the formal cooperation between the 8 Nordic countries, covering from the west Greenland to the east Finland. We are organizing this together with Green of Iceland. And I'm very pleased to see you all here. You're welcome to come up a little bit closer if you want to. But otherwise, we will start the discussion. Nordic Energy Research is both financing joint knowledge creation through research, but we are also facilitating the intergovernmental cooperation between the Nordic countries. And as you probably know, the energy system in the Nordic as well as worldwide are undergoing rapid transformation. Recent geopolitical developments have placed energy security firmly alongside sustainability and affordability as defined policy challenges. The Nordic countries have shown that strong regional cooperation, innovation and clean political direction can accelerate the transition, but each nation faces its own realities and trade-off. So I would like to start this session by hearing how each country is approaching these intervened goals. And it's a pleasure for me to welcome the first speaker, which is the Minister of Climate and Environment in Norway, 𝗕𝗿𝗶𝗫𝗀𝗍𝗍. Please have a seat. So, Minister, how is Norway working with energy security?
I think Norway, we are a country who have been working with energy security within the scope of a renewable power system for a very long period of time. I mean, we started building our renewable system because we have a lot of hydropower in Norway already 120 years ago. And one of the lessons was, of course, that a renewable power system is dependent on weather in various ways, but in Norway, heavily dependent on the amount of rainfall that we get every year. So until the 1950s, 60s, we experienced about every 10 years sort of a dry season, which would create big challenges on blackouts, on forced closure, on supply of energy all around in Norway, which created the debate on interconnectedness and connecting our power system to first Sweden, but then also the other Nordic countries. And although debates on interconnectors can be difficult sometimes in Norway because it also has a price effect on the electricity price in Norway, it remains a crucial part of our energy security, being able to be interconnected and to utilize the advantages also of the power systems around us whenever we get a dry season in Norway. Then second, although we have a 100% renewable power system today, 50% of the energy that we use is still fossil energy. So for our energy security development work going forward, it is a lot about being able to strengthen and further develop the production of renewable in Norway, and doing that in a way that well integrates variable power producing sources like wind, like solar, with the technologies that we have in our power system already today. We have a great sort of opportunity to do that because hydropower plants, at least the ones with a magazine, have the great advantage that they can be turned on and off. So whenever the sun is not shining or the wind is not blowing, it's easier for Norway than for many other countries to be able to integrate these new power generation technologies into the power system that we have today. So now, really, the big focal point of our energy security is to maintain sufficient amounts of interconnectedness, while at the same time successfully integrating new renewable technologies into our power system.
Okay, thank you very much. And now I would also like to invite from Iceland the Ambassador of Climate, 𝗕𝗷𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 So Maria, Iceland is located out in the North Atlantic. How do you work with energy security? I mean, you're more isolated than, at least in physical connections.
Hello, good. I thank you for inviting me to participate. Actually, we're not part of the grid because we're an island, and I just wanted to start by sending our Minister for Climate and Energy, for Environment, Energy and Climate's regards. He unfortunately could not be with us here today, so I'm here on his behalf. So I'm going to actually read out a few points that he was going to present here today. But as I say, we're not part of the grid, so our situation is a bit different. And when you think about Iceland, you think about geothermal. And actually, we are a blueprint for renewable energy success regarding geothermal. And this didn't happen in one night, but over the past century, we transferred from fossil fuel dependence to near total reliance on clean domestic resources. And today, actually, 100% of our electricity is generated from renewables, primarily hydropower and geothermal energy. And more than 90% of homes are heated using geothermal. And this shift has not only decarbonized our energy supply, it has improved quality of life, brought affordable energy and stabilized price, and built national resilience. But as I say, this didn't happen in one night. In Reykjavik, in our capital, we started with district heating in 1930, but this expanded, and actually in the 1970s, we were in the oil crisis, we started to looking into other options. We were still importing fossil fuel. And in those years, we had the shift to geothermal. And this happened, I mean, with, of course, a lot of support, public investment, innovative financing, and strong. But this was achievement, and this is how the capital is today. It's, as I said, 90% is from is geothermal today. But alongside geothermal, hydropower has also been a pillar in our success, and it's the backbone of our electricity system. But today, in a world shaken by geopolitical tension, climate risk, and energy market shocks, Iceland's experience feels more relevant than ever. Energy is no longer just about infrastructure, it's about sovereignty, stability, and social cohesion. By building a self-sufficient renewable energy system, we're insulted households by things that... So, we view this system as one of our most valuable national assets. It didn't happen by chance. It took decades of investment and shared national mission and understanding that clean energy serves not just environmental goals, but economic and social ones. While energy is a pillar of our national prosperity, we have also ensured, as a matter of law, that in times of crisis, households and essential services are guaranteed access to electricity. This brings me to cooperation. Our five countries share commitment to sustainability, trust, and public good. This spirit of cooperation is a model for others and increasingly essential in today's world. We deeply believe in sharing what we've learned. Iceland has long supported geothermal training for partners around the world, and we're now investing in next frontier, super hot geothermal. We're drilling deeper, innovating faster, and inviting others to join us in this work. Because the clean energy transition isn't something any country can or should do alone. So on behalf of Minister Jónsson, let me close this with this. Clean energy is not just a climate imperative, it's a foundation for well-being, for economic strength, for national independence. And when we work together as Nordics, as partners, as a global community, we can build energy systems that deliver security, prosperity, and climate stability for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now from Sweden, we have the climate ambassador and head of delegation to UNFCCC, 𝗕𝗷𝗶𝗸𝗀𝗀𝗧. Please, how do you work with energy security?
I'd like to pick up on what Maria said in terms of the oil crisis, because I think that also for us was a turning point in terms of our approach to energy security when we started the rollout, for example, of heat pumps, and we realized we couldn't be relying on imports of fossil fuels, but rather found another alternative for housing, which has proven hugely successful. I mean, I remember myself growing up, we installed heat pumps in our house, and I think it was, every other house within the neighborhood used that kind of technology. And it was also sort of a subsidy program from the state, that the state ensuring that households were indeed installing heat pumps in order to get rid of our fossil fuel dependence when it comes to heating in houses. So just as one example in terms of how we have been working in the past also when it comes to energy security. I mean, like our Nordic neighbors, our energy mix today is very much based on, in our case, both renewables and nuclear. 80% of our energy mix is either hydropower or nuclear, and the remaining being solar and wind, and increasingly so as well. But as we're seeing also the increase of electricity needed, not least for the decarbonization of industry, I mean, we're setting out now also to be expanding even further our use of nuclear power to ensure that kind of energy security for the sustainability of our industry actors.
Okay, thank you very much. So now this COP is also about a lot of discussion about the national NDCs. And you have all touched about this connection between sustainability, affordability, maybe also, and then energy security. So I'm wondering how in your country you are addressing the three challenges while acting the NDC. So, from Norway, Minister, could you please elaborate a little bit? Do you consider these three different challenges when you're working with the NDC?
So I think the NDC is basically a work to transition society as a whole. And that has to be based on strategies that not only look at climate, because if you only look at climate, you forget sort of the bigger picture that gives legitimacy to climate policies over time. So working with energy security, working with access to energy for industry, for businesses, for example, and to be able to develop that to also continue expanding opportunities in Norway. That is an extremely important way for us to work with the NDC concretely. Now, what has changed a little bit in Norway in the last couple of years is that I think climate policy, it used to be sort of a one-topic policy. We discussed it very much in isolation. And every now and then, good things happened because we could agree on something. The EV policies is an example of that in Norway. But many times it was very easy to say no when you think of climate policy as a single topic policy, because many people will always be against that kind of transformation. The thing we started doing 4 years ago was to create a green book where we account CO2 emissions together with accounting money in the government annual budget. And that, I think, is a quite smart way of tackling some of these interconnected challenges that we work on in the space of climate policies, because then you force people to also say yes to something. If we're going to achieve our NDC, there are a lot of things we can decide not to do, but we can't decide not to do anything, because then you won't cut emissions fast enough. And when you then start to say yes to things based on the fact that you have an NDC that you need to reach, it's much easier also to create good analysis of, okay, what kind of strain does that actually put on our grid system? What does that mean for renewable production and ramping up renewable production going forward? What does it mean for cooperation with our other Nordic countries to ensure that we have a power system in the Nordics that's actually ready for the transformation that we're going to do going forward? So I think that has at least helped us see the interconnected challenges of achieving our NDCs more holistically and be able to work smarter on it, and also more long-term on it. Because in the short-term perspective, there is just so much you really can do to climate policy, right? But building more grids, that's something that takes time and has to be done in a long-term perspective. So also to sort of achieve a climate policy that is an enabler for our 2050 target, which is to reduce emissions up till 95%, from 90 to 95% as compared to 1990 levels, that is crucial to be able to work in that holistic manner.
So in the last couple of years, the geopolitical situation has made new pressure on different targets. Do you see any short-term energy concerns, and is there a risk that is actually affecting the long-term climate goals?
I mean, the bridge between short-term and long-term is always challenging, I think. And I think Norway, we can say that we see this from different angles. I mean, because we're both a big renewables producers, but we're obviously also a big oil and gas producer and exporter. And sometimes people ask me if it's difficult to come to COPs, for example, as a big oil and gas producer. And my perspective is perhaps that, well, not really. It's not more difficult to be here as a producer of oil and gas than a big consumer of oil and gas per se. But we shouldn't shy away from the difficult conversations about how we need to transition as a producing country and how consuming countries need to transition. This is what we have in essence achieved in Europe, because through the European quota market, which Norway of course is a part of, and we are until 2030 already with a climate agreement that we have together with the EU, and also for the foreseeable future, as long as we can extend that agreement, a fully integrated partner of EU climate policies. And that is really, really a good thing, because it ensures that we have a CO2 price, both when oil and gas is produced in Norway, and also when it's delivered to the European energy market or the European transportation system. So whenever petrol is used in Swedish cars, it's both priced when it's produced in Norway, and it's also priced when it's being utilized in Sweden in many ways. And those are the kind of interconnected systems on climate policies that we need more of to be able to achieve the long-term perspectives. Because everyone understands that we, neither in Europe or globally, can just stop utilizing fossil fuels overnight without detrimental effects to our energy systems. That's for everyone to understand. And we saw what happened to the European energy market when Russia invaded Ukraine, with the big energy shocks that we got. So you need a long-term perspective on the transformation and very clear market signals on where you want to go. And with the ETS, I mean, the Norwegian oil and gas companies and the European energy companies, they have to face the truth now that the system runs out of quotas in 2040, regardless of whether they like it or not. And they might succeed in technologies that enable them to capture and store carbon, for example. Well, if in that case, there might be a room for some technologies for industries, for example, where you're probably still going to have utilization of fossil fuels also in 2040. But they cannot shy away from the fact that this is the direction that the market is going to. And it's not a fear, but it's something that we need to sort of note in Europe going forward, is that in the case I have a worry of whether that will happen or not, it's perhaps that it still seems to me that the market does not fully believe that the ETS will be out of quotas in 15 years' time. Because then they would have made other investments than perhaps what we see right now. Politicians, both in Norway and in Europe in general, needs to be very clear on the direction that we've set, that we won't back away from this. And if we can do that, then the market signal will be strong enough for the energy sector to actually do this long-term transformation that we need to see gradually, year by year, going forward.
Thank you. Matthias, from the Swedish side, how has the geopolitical risk, is it reflecting in the EDC or in the energy priorities? I mean,
obviously the changes starting with the Russian invasion have been very profound also in the terms of how we as Europe respond, including when it comes to our own energy security. And I think it's interesting to see how the Russian invasion has actually been a driver of the renewable energy boom within Europe. building our energy security as well. And I think that also speaks to what we see many business actors are doing in terms of their own energy security and providing for renewables and making sure that they have sort of a sustainable supply of energy across their various value chains. So definitely has been a sort of a defining moment for Europe, and I think also that is evident in our new NDC, which we were happy to produce just ahead of COP30. Where we're aiming for a reduction of emissions of 90% by 2040 and setting an intermediate target for 2035, and ensuring also, of course, that the energy transition will be accelerating in the next couple of years. And I think maybe just to highlight as well, another interesting conversation which is happening here at COP30 is, as President Lula was saying, he wanted to see a roadmap for the transition away from fossil fuels and energy systems. And we're here also the Brazilian Minister of Environment highlighting the roadmap as being a key outcome of COP30. And I think also, as the Minister was saying, obviously that is going to be different from different countries. Some countries being very dependent on exports, others being very dependent on imports, others maybe could be taking sort of early steps in that transition away from fossil fuels. But I think setting that kind of roadmap, maybe not always on timelines, but also at least setting the direction. And again, as the Minister was saying, providing that kind of level of confidence for business actors that this is the direction of travel. And I think maybe just a final point on that. When we speak to our business actors, what they're saying, again, the single most important policy tool is carbon pricing. In the EU we have ETS, but we also have domestic carbon pricing systems. And Sweden just assumed the chairmanship of something we call the Global Carbon Pricing Challenge, where we're encouraging countries globally to be deploying instruments such as carbon pricing to provide that kind of clarity for business actors and actually drive the transition also away from fossil fuels.
Thank you. Maria, this setting the roadmap, which key technology or innovation in Iceland do you think is strengthening or what is behind your roadmap if you have to make it?
Well, we're in a bit different position. As I said, we're not part of the grid, and geothermal and hydro is of course a priority for us. But I mentioned before that we have this super hot geothermal, and it's really a frontier technology for energy. And what we're doing, it's actually innovation, and we're tapping ultra deep zones up to 400 degrees to vastly increase renewable baseload capacity. So this is really a next generation delivery, but this is still, of course, on an innovative stage, but high hope for this, for super geothermal. But what is also important is to have investment and incentives. And in Iceland we have what is called Climate and Energy Fund, and it's a targeted public investment that accelerates innovation and deployment. I would also say what is important is strong policy framework and long-term roadmap. So as we know, policy is always important, and there we have a roadmap to the year 2000. We're working on the geothermal energy roadmap to 2050 will guide exploration and sustainable use of decades to come. And then we also have Iceland deep drilling project that I mentioned. Well, it also acts as a super hot zones in the 𝗕𝗍𝗀𝗀 field in Iceland. So I mean, it's all about planning and policy alignment, and then also expanded geothermal access nationwide. We have an initiative which is the geothermal changes the playing field. It's an initiative that supports innovation in low temperature and heat pump-based systems. So it gives broader access to all regions. And then I would say, where we are of course strong, it's our knowledge sharing, and which is internationally. I mean, we are exporting a lot of knowledge. I sometimes say that our soft diplomacy is our knowledge sharing in geothermal. And because spoke about the security issue before, I mean, we are, as I said before, geothermal and hydro is our main, and we are not exporting. So for us, I mean, our security is based on our national sources, but we see, I mean, since I mentioned here knowledge sharing, we see things are changing. I mean, we see there's much more interest in geothermal and also in Europe, and there's more requests coming to us for further knowledge and training than before. So we see a change also, even though we're not, as I said, we have our own, within the nation, our own system. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. If any of you would like to come with comments, just Mark. But now, I mean, we have had this national perspective. I think we also, and you also talked about this, that we actually can do something together, and we are interconnected. So I would like to lead the discussion a little bit more on what can we do nationally, and where can we find added value in doing it together. And I think the Nordic countries, as most of you probably have known, we have demonstrated that regional cooperation can accelerate the energy transition. But if I start with you, Minister, what are your experiences and which lesson from the Nordic countries' approach could inspire other regions? I mean, on their path to a sustainable and secure energy future?
So I think first and foremost, the Nordic countries were the first in the world to develop modern power markets and also modern interconnected power markets. And I think to achieve what we try to achieve, to be able to interconnect both regions and nations in a sound way, that's quite a crucial part of being able to get to where we want to be. We see in many ways that Europe has adopted much of the approach that was developed in the Nordic countries 25, 30 years ago. And I think there are lessons there to be learned from other regions as well. The next thing is, of course, that I think we have demonstrated in the Nordic countries that a lot of climate technologies can be adopted fast and also without big negative effects for people in our nations. And just one example, I mean, 10 years ago, the EV share of new EV cars sold in Norway was approximately 20%, 25%. Now it's 100% of new cars sold are fully electric vehicles. And of course, given the fact that people change their car every now and then, we actually now already see a roadmap for zero emissions from the transportation, land-based transportation sector, which is a big part of Norwegian annual emissions. This doesn't come without a plan, of course, right? So especially in the first phase, the government was active in giving support to companies who wanted to build fast chargers, especially along the main routes in Norway, to ensure that infrastructure was in place. But now we see that this is basically a fully market-driven approach. And we see that also some of the economic incentives that have been there for choosing EVs can be rolled back because they've basically played their part and ensured that we can do this development in quite a rapid period of time. And the fact that you can take such big sectors as road transportation and decarbonize them in basically 10, 15 years, as long as you start early enough, I think that's a great lesson that we can utilize also in other areas and make us a bit inspired. And the prerequisites for different countries to do something will always be different because different countries are facing different challenges, different approaches. But my sense would be that every country can do something, pick something and be a leader on that and demonstrate how it can be done. A country like Brazil has done that in reducing deforestation, for example, which is also a major contributor to much of what we need to do globally. So there is a value and a lesson in that we can deploy technology, and the other Nordic countries have also done that in other areas rapidly to also reduce our emissions rapidly.
Thank you. Matthias, what can we learn from the Swedish cooperation with the other Nordic countries? Can you elaborate a little bit about this added value of co-regulation?
Well, I think as the minister was saying, I mean, one element which we do want to share is just our model of collaboration. You know, that we are actually 5 countries getting together to collaborate. I mean, I think the Nordic energy market is such a great example of, I mean, obviously there can be hiccups there as well, but I mean, it's such a great example of how countries are coming together to collaborate on such a key resource. So just the model of collaboration, I think, is one example. But obviously then sort of all the various types of solutions that our business actors can provide. I mean, we have, I think, all the Nordic countries may have their separate pavilions here as well. We have the Swedish pavilion just, you know, down the hall here, where we have a number of Swedish companies being able here presenting solutions that they can provide to accelerate the transition globally, including on energy, for energy storage and smart use of the grid, for example. How do you optimize the grid in a way to make sure that electricity is being used where it's needed most, and how, you know, the kind of technology being developed to ensure that kind of optimization. So I think that's also a second element which we as Nordic countries want to contribute with and can contribute with, you know, both in a bilateral way, but also as a group of Nordic countries. And I think also highlighting that not only that the solutions are there, but that they bring benefits to societies at large when we make the transition. You know, our key messages when it comes to climate action is urgency and opportunity. Urgency obviously based on the science, but opportunity also based on the jobs and growth and strength and competitiveness that we see that the transition brings. And that's really the kind of the key message that we want to convey to partners at COP30, highlighting that if we embrace the transition, we will also build stronger economies for the future by deploying these kind of solutions, by making the NDCs a point of departure for the transition of our economies and building them in a more sustainable way as well.
Thank you. So beside from technical perspective, being physical connected, whatever it is, I think the Nordic spirit also matters a little bit. What is the key enabler? Would anyone, I don't know, one who wants to elaborate a little bit, what is it actually that make us feel like Nordics and want to be in a joint electricity market, or want to make a Nordic solution that can actually be replicated or upscaled somewhere else? Someone wants to... Maria, you want to?
I think, I mean, I actually just came back from a year ago from Berlin. I was ambassador there for 5 years. So I've been working in a Nordic environment also for many years. And when you are abroad and working all 5 together, as we always say, we're different, but we're united there. It's our values. I think, I mean, that is what is behind everything, as Matthias mentioned. So we see, I mean, for us it's important to be together. We're presenting this model that what underpins it all is our Nordic values that we are also trying to, because we want people to have access. It blooms economy if you have access to energy. It's prosperity also. So I think that this is what underpins us as a Nordic. People always ask me, what are these Nordic values? How can you explain them? I mean, it's so embedded that maybe it's hard to, because we take everything, you know, gender and it's for us it's something we. So I think what lies underneath everything is that we are, as Matthias said, presenting this model. We have a lot to provide. Green solutions and so on. I'm not going to repeat everything that the minister has already said, or Matthias, but I think this is what is the Nordic mindset, and we want to present ourselves together as one strong. We have a lot to offer, all the 5 countries together.
Matthias?
Maybe just building on that, I mean, our strong democratic societies of inclusivity and participation, you know, all voices count. But I think also wanting to highlight innovation, I think it's sort of a key element for all of us, where, you know, we have entrepreneurs wanting to be a part of this kind of society and wanting to develop these kind of solutions and, you know, share them globally. And I think that's also sort of part of the Nordic spirit, have that innovative spirit of you know, trying to find these kind of new solutions which would help us build better economies and better societies as well.
Minister, how do we think Nordic?
I mean, it has to be our shared Viking heritage. So
Yes.
you think no, but I mean, we have a very strong cultural heritage, and I think that's quite important actually for the Nordic region. And I think the second thing is that I mean, not all types of capital are measured in money, and I think we have a very high degree of trust between the Nordic countries, and I think. Sometimes that is perhaps what is lacking in other negotiating processes, because if you have a high degree of trust, then you all believe that we all want the same thing and we trust each other to find a way to do it. It's not always easy. We sometimes disagree about specific things, but we still have sort of the perspective that we all have our common interest in mind when we work together on different issues. And I think that is also a very good point of departure. Of course, that level of trust is hard to sort of build overnight. But I think at least our experience is that utilizing concrete fields where you work together can over time help build that trust. And perhaps that's also something that other regions, both in Europe and other parts of the world, can be inspired by.
So in a shifting world, would we need more trust? Would we need more cooperation? What do you think? Or do we have to think more nationally?
I mean, if we take this into the space of climate negotiation, without trust, the process becomes almost meaningless. Because, I mean, climate change is one global challenge that we're all facing. And at the same time, we also all face this basically free rider problem, where everyone has, to a certain extent, an incentive to let others do the job and then don't take on the cost for themselves. So if we don't have the perspective that everyone tries to do their part based on the capabilities that they have, and those will for sure differ, then it's very hard to get anywhere. I think, although it's challenging, we have demonstrated that the Paris Agreement is working. If you look where we were headed in 2015, as compared to where we're headed today, we have taken big steps in the right direction. So to me, that shows that trust is there, because otherwise countries wouldn't have gone home to do NDCs and go back again and report on them and strive to do more. But trust can still be sort of even better and even more and be developed over time, and that should be something that we strive towards, because although we have taken big steps in the right direction, we're still not where we need to be. We still have a big gap that we need to work to close, and that can only be done by all of us coming together to find a reasonable way of doing that.
Thank you. I would like to open up the floor if there's any of you in the audience who wants to raise a question, then please let me know. You want to raise a question? Yeah. Just please state your name.
Hello, my name is Natasha Schmidt, and the question is for the three of you. I would like to know your opinion. So when we're talking about energy transition and moving away from fossil fuels, do you think we should put more pressure on countries that produces, like Saudi Arabia, like Brazil, or countries that consumes oil, like, for example, United States? When we think about public policies and all of the movements, where should be the pressure?
Do you want to start, Matthias, or I can start?
So I can. No, I'm happy to start. I mean, I think we need to do both. And from a Swedish perspective, what we try to do is more sort of focus on what are the available solutions and how can we support countries in both transitioning away from fossil fuels dependence in terms of the buyers, what other energy sources are there, and also for the producers of fossil fuels, what are the sources of income are there? So working with countries who are exporting fossil fuels today, how can we work with them to diversify their economies, for example? So I think maybe I wouldn't use the word pressure, but rather encouraging that kind of the transition away from fossil fuels by both sort of highlighting the solutions and how we can focus on diversification of economy because we all want to ensure that we have an orderly transition away from fossil fuels and that we're building strong societies and economies globally. And I think sort of having that in mind is also how we try to frame the conversation with partners globally.
I would like to echo a bit what Matthias has said. I mean, from our perspective, we of course find it important that we support countries, and we are, with our knowledge, mostly supporting countries where there is geothermal. So that's how we support it. I mean, that there's a shift so they can use sustainable energy. And as I said before, our support is mostly in our development countries with 2 countries that have geothermal. So because we see that geothermal can be part of part of the solution also. I mean, you can use solar, wind, and so on, but we support countries so they can be able to use sustainable energy. So, thank you.
No, just to finalize, I agree with what's been said already, and I mean, the basic problem here is to be able to coordinate the energy transition between the countries that produce and between the countries that consume, right? Because for Norway's part, we are an oil and gas producing country. Most of the energy that we produce is not utilized in Norway, right? So for the energy transition to be orderly and to function well over time, we need to do something on the supply side and reduce production over time. But at the same time, the countries that utilize Norwegian oil and gas today, Sweden and Denmark and Germany and other European countries, they also have to do something coordinatedly with the work that we do. And there, I think, perhaps, if you call it pressure or something that we at least should find a way internationally to work more on, it's to solve that coordination problem. So what we've achieved by the European trading scheme, the quota scheme that we have in Europe, is that we put a price on the CO2 emissions both when the oil and gas is produced in Norway and also when it's consumed in the European energy market. And then we reduce the cap year by year until the cap reaches 0. And that is something that Norwegian oil and gas producers have to abide by. And that is something that consumers of Norwegian oil and gas in Sweden and Denmark and Germany have to abide by. And by having that long-term perspective on transition, we avoid getting stuck in that discussion, should you as producers do something or should you as consumers do something? Because we both have to do something gradually to be able to actually achieve the energy transition over time.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's time to sum up a little bit. I would like to end the discussion by looking a little bit forward. I mean, if we have to look forward, just to 2030, what is the most important step for your country or globally to make the energy system both secure and consistent with the Paris Agreement? It's a big question, but who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay.
I can start. I mean, my professional background as an energy regulator, working on grid systems, make me have to say that it's being able to build more grids faster. I think if there is one sort of key infrastructure that we're going to need going forward, it's more grids. I think the Nordic countries, we have a very good basis because we have highly electrified societies already. So our grids are not where you have the biggest constraint already. But of course, we see that for new projects to be developed over the next couple of years, we have to scale up the tempo in which we manage to build out our electrical grids. Whether it's industry that wants to decarbonize, whether it's transportation that wants to decarbonize, whether it's shipping that wants to decarbonize, almost in every area, access to grids are the most crucial points. And of course, that will have to be followed up with more renewable production as well. But the key short-term infrastructure we need to get more of is electrical grids if we're going to keep up the tempo in both reducing emissions, but at the same time creating jobs, opportunities for people in the Nordic countries.
Thank you. Maria, what is the most important steps?
Just very short. Also to echo what the minister said, I'm just going to mention 3 points. I think we have to wrap rapid scale-up of renewables. We have the bold policies and invest, and inclusive transition. Those are the 3 points.
Thank you. Matthias.
I'll just add energy efficiency. I think it's sort of adding to the grids and also the points that Maria have made. I think it's there is so much to gain from the energy that we're using not in an efficient way today. And again, there are so many solutions available for energy efficiency to be rolled out even quicker. We made, for example, the commitment in Dubai to double the energy efficiency up by 2030. So I think that's also a key element which I would want to highlight.
So, thank you very much. I think today's dialogue has shown that the energy transition is not only about technology, it's also about trust, it's about collaboration, and it's also about leadership. And I think the Nordic experience has demonstrated that how regional cooperation can strengthen both energy security and climate action. By sharing lessons and action collectively, we can build a sustainable and secure energy. So with that, I would like to thank you, Minister, Climate Ambassadors, for your valuable insight, and also the audience and the questions here. So thank you very much. Please give them an applause.
Tusen hjertelig.